The main reason that people struggle to get any sort of client, but specifically high ticket clients, so I'm talking about 8 to 12K plus clients, is because you are triggering their fight or flight response every time you expose them to anything. And when I say expose them to something, I'm referring to the word stimuli. So, stimuli is when you see something, right? And what happens is you show them some sort of email or you say something on a sales call, or the entire environment of this sales call seems like it's you versus them. And this whole predator prey style is the reason that majority of people can never get a sale. And the people that really make client acquisition extremely simple and easy are the people that have cracked this specifically, because the difference is when they get on a sales call, it's not about them trying to hard convince the client to buy something from them. When they send them an email, it's not about them trying to hard convince them to spend at least 15 minutes with them on a meeting. It's super simple. They just get on the call, they see the value, and they want to buy because they want to buy, not because you had to convince them. That is the difference, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do today. This has worked extremely well for ourselves. This is the same frameworks that we work on through all of our client acquisition systems, including sales and appointment booking. It's the same system I've installed into over 50 different agencies by now, and this same system is used by multiple agencies doing over 7 figures. So the stuff works, and if you apply this to what you're doing, promise you you'll see better results. I absolutely promise you. So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is you. And you are a stimuli, and you are trying to reach out to a client. And you, as the stimuli, are scary. You're like a spider. And when somebody sees a spider, they get this visual stimuli, and it triggers their amygdala. So what the amygdala is responsible for is your fight or flight response. And as soon as the amygdala takes over the brain, it starts dumping chemicals such as cortisol into the brain. And as soon as that happens, people stop buying with emotions and they stop thinking logically at all. It completely shuts out a blocker to want to biologically kill you. They feel like they are against you. So the idea is, how do we break past this amygdala? How do we break past this blocker? Because on the other side of this blocker is signing more clients, right? So the first thing that we have to understand when it comes to the amygdala is that all its action is reacting to some sort of stimuli. And the better that you understand how stimuli works, the better you can engineer stimuli to elicit to any sort of market to get whatever results you want. So that brings us to our first point, which is going to be stimuli habituation. Then the rest of these points are going to get you past breaking this block. So what stimuli habituation is, so stimuli being this thing that you see, habituation means it becomes a habit. You become used to it, right? So this really applies to any sort of outbound system, but also a lot of sales systems. So what it means is, let's say that I'm, I don't know, a roofer or any sort of market, and I receive some sort of marketing over and over again. Let's say every time I see an email with that says their agency or marketing agency or an ads agency, I get into a habit of just closing the email. And over again, I've had bad experiences once I've tried a marketing agency. So now I'm going to assume every other marketing agency is a scammer, right? So I'm habitualized to see a stimuli of marketing agencies. Marketing agencies are now this spider. My amygdala is going to process this stimuli and see it as a threat. And now I get my fight or flight response. I'm either going to try to kill that person. You usually can't kill somebody over an email, or actually you do. This is where we see people start saying bad things over an email to you, right? Or they just ignore you. So they flight, right? So once you understand how to bypass this is where things are going to start to work. Same thing with sales. If you start off a sales call super scripty and you build zero rapport and you say, today my plan is to learn more about you and your business, and I want to make sure that I can help you before even pitching you, and if I think I can help you, then I'm going to give you a pitch and we're going to see if we can move forward, right? If it sounds super scripted, then stimuli habituation kicks in. They've heard the same dang scripts over and over again, and they're gonna kills the mood for the rest of the call. Same thing when you're actually delivering a pitch. If your pitch does not include things about the person you just talked to for the past 30 minutes, and you're just reading through some lines about how awesome you are, they're going to fall asleep. And I see this so much. Like, I look at a whole bunch of sales calls reviews, and the people are just waiting for the pitch to get over. The guy's just rambling about how great they are. And the difference is, like, when I'm on a sales call, when I pitch somebody, the person is leaned in. You can see their body language. They're super engaged. They can't wait for me to say the next thing, right? And it's because I've engineered our pitch to be completely congruent with their personal interest. And that's what I'm going to get to in a second. So the first thing you have to realize when it comes to actually creating stimuli that doesn't fall victim to stimuli habituation is you got to stop monkey seeing, monkey doing. Majority of people, when they create any sort of stimuli, the first thing they'll do is look up somebody else famous and then copy them. Or if they want to create an appointment booking system, they YouTube best appointment booking system for email, best appointment booking system for DM outreach. And then they copy the system and they try it and they wonder why it doesn't work. This is why it doesn't work. If you're using the same systems that everybody else has free access to and is trying to use, then everybody's used it. Your target market has already seen the stimuli and they are numb to it. They are habitualized to it. So then the question becomes, okay, so how do we create stimuli that isn't habitualized? Well, the key here is understanding how those systems were made. Not taking the systems themselves, but reverse engineering. Why do they work? The key is understanding how to think, how to fish, rather than just taking the fish. So the way that you do that is, and this is what I've done multiple times for a lot of our systems, is let's say, yes, there's somebody in the market doing absolutely incredible. I'm going to go through their funnel. I'm going to reverse engineer their funnel. Then I'm going to look at, okay, let's look at their VSL, right? And I'm going to say, okay, what's the framework of this VSL? Why did they say this? How did they know to pinpoint this pain? Does this mean that this market has this pain specifically, or did they completely miss the mark on this? Can I change the way that they worded something? Can I look at the comments to see their reaction to whatever YouTube video they made, right? So I'll start to reverse engineer what people are looking for, and I'll start to reverse engineer what people are tired of seeing over and over again, right? So that's the idea with stimuli habituation. The way that you avoid just becoming another person in the crowd is to learn to think. You have to learn how to actually create your own stimuli based off of the psychological conditions of your market. And this applies to the same thing with your sales. If you understand, like I always use the roofing example, just because I've helped a lot of agencies that do home services. If you understand, like roofers, they have a big ego, right? And they're always super defensive and never want to feel like they got sold or anything. If you start off the conversation in a very loosey manner, you make a joke, you throw things off the normal path, right? This is why pattern interrupts work. That is how you avoid stimuli habituation. You apply it to your sales calls, you apply it to your appointment booking, and you will see a difference. Next thing is going to be predator and prey theory. So when we get on a call, it seems like I'm trying to sell this person, and this person is trying to be skeptical on why I should or shouldn't buy from you, right? The key here is understanding how do we make this environment feel like we are on a joint venture for their success, that we are not with them. We're sitting at the same side of the table. And this is why even in in-person sales, you'll notice the best salesmen, they never sit straight on against the prospect. They'll usually be leaning in sideways with them, right? And that's very important because, I mean, subconsciously, if we're right in front of somebody, we're getting ready to fight. So that's the idea with predator and prey theory to bypass the amygdala. When we're on a sales call, we can start to position ourselves with language like, how do we approach this, right? So if somebody's saying, I really don't think that this is gonna be, I can't afford it, right? Okay, I totally understand you can't afford it. Uh, I want to make sure that we look for all the reasons that we can make this happen and look instead of looking for all the reasons this can't work, right? Because I want to make sure, number one, do you believe that this will work for you? Yes, I believe it will work for you. And okay, awesome. I want to make sure that before anything, that's the most important part to me. Second thing is I want to figure out what's the way that we can figure out a way to make this work. So what other sources of income, what can you do to get the assets to invest into your business? Oh, I can do XYZ. Perfect. Okay. So then we start walking in through them with them as an advisor. And that's also a new thing too recently. The whole discovery call and the whole sort of framing around a sales call is dying. And this is a very recent thing. Like we just changed the name of all of our calls and we just told all of our clients, and I'm seeing a lot of the other people in the industry, they're changing the name of their calls to an advisory call. And it's because they understand, like, we're seeing this happen a lot more. We're in a trust recession. We have to bypass the amygdala. So now people are positioning it as an advisory call. So it seems like you're in a joint exploration to figure out a solution to their problems. And that's very powerful, right? So that's how we take advantage of predator and prey theory as far as a sales call, and especially with outbound systems. The way that you want to position it is that when you're doing your call to action, you'll say, "This is what we can hop on a call where we can explore these issues, and I'll actually solve your bottleneck for free." So that is an absolutely huge killer line. Is when you're saying, "I want to explore your issues and then solve it for free on the call," right? And the other way that you could do this is by understanding the psychological conditions of your market. So if you already understand your clients better than they understand themselves, now we're able to create stimuli that already seems like we understand them, that already seems like we've been in their position. And when that happens, they don't feel like they're dealing with another person who's, let's say, a marketing agency. Now they feel like they're dealing with one of their own. And especially when we use the same language, the same vocabulary terms as them. Now we're positioning ourselves with them instead of us against them. That's the idea. There's going to be emotional buying. So there's two factors when it comes to making a decision, right? You need pain and you need confidence. Without pain and confidence, nobody will take action. It doesn't matter if you have 100% pain but zero confidence that it's going to fix the pain, then you're not going to take action. If we have 100% confidence with 0% pain, it doesn't matter to take action because we don't have any reason to do it. So your goal when it comes to emotional buying, whether it is on a sales call or appointment booking system, is to understand, how do we increase confidence as much as possible, or how do we indirectly induce, or in other words, amplify pain as much as possible? And we can do the inverse of these. So we can also take away comfort, or we can take away doubt. That is the way that you can engineer these things. So when you're building your copy or when you're on your sales calls, you can approach it like this. When you want to engineer pain, for example, sales call or copy, you can engineer pains in a few different ways. One of the main ways that you'll notice is discussion, right? So when we speak language out loud, our brain can't really process the difference between something that's real versus something that's said. So if I start talking about, yeah, we're spending, this is what I do a lot of times. I'll say, how much are you spending a month on ads? Oh, we're spending about $8,000. Okay, how many appointments are you booking? We're booking maybe 4 to 5 a week. Are you happy with that? And then you just get into, they start talking about, like, even them just saying we're booking 4 to 5 a week, just because I created the context of you're spending this much and you're getting 4 to 5 appointments a week, that indirectly causes pain. That is uncomfortable. Okay, how long have you been running these ads for? Oh, we've been running these ads 6 to 8 months, right? That's still painful. How long have you been struggling with this issue? Oh, we've been blah, 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 blah. So once they start vocalizing their pains, they start vocalizing their experiences, that is how we create pain. Actually, I want to rephrase. You never create pain, you amplify existing pain, right? The other way, like I said, is to remove certainty as far as creating pain. So increase doubt, right? So the other way we could do that is, okay, well, what happens if we don't make a change, right? So super simple stuff, the classic building urgency. But it's important to understand, like, why does building urgency actually work, right? So when we start talking about all these things, that is how we start to increase that pain cycle so they will make a decision. And when we do this correctly, if we are not positioned as somebody, so if we go back to predator and prey theory, if we do this positioned as a predator, they're not gonna get really mad at us, right? So if I say these uncomfortable questions, then they're just gonna tell us to F off. That's why you'll hear a lot of sales reps. They're like, I'm afraid to ask these uncomfortable questions. Well, yeah, it's because you don't know how to build any rapport or build any stimuli that makes them feel like you are on their side to try to fix the issue. You're so worried about me, 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 me. What is my performance as a sales rep that you completely forget the most important part of the call, which is the person you're talking to. People are so self-centered and worried about their own performance and ego that they completely forget that it's about the prospect. And when that happens, their amygdala flares up, you get seen as this dang spider on the screen, and then this block comes up and you never get the sale. Super simple. Same thing when we're building confidence as far as emotional buying. So when you're doing your pitch, right? And this also goes back into predator and prey theory. So when you're listening to somebody in a discovery phase, for example, you need to pick up all the small, minute details that they explained and specifically all their experiences. Because now when we deliver a pitch, we can say, you know how you said you've been sending random DM outreach for 5 hours a day, or you know how you've been posting randomly on social media, hoping you'd get some roofing jobs. Well, that is why the first thing we're going to do is XYZ, right? Because now what we're doing is instead of us like just throwing our pitch at them and it's all about us, now we flip the script as far as building confidence. Now we say, oh, well, I hear you. I understand you. Now we're at the same side. And since we're on the same side, here's what I see as the possible solution. That switch in framing is how you bypass the amygdala. That's how you bypass this buying block that everybody seems to struggle with. And that is why there's a really good quote by, I believe it's Carl Rogers, and it says, for anybody to see a new perspective, they must feel accepted. And without acceptance, their ego will prevent any sort of change in perspective. And that is, again, if you're as a predator, the ego, like when you see two predators, a lot of times it's their egos fighting for the right. So if you like look in biology, if you see, like, I don't know, like gorillas fighting each other, and they're fighting over a mate or something, a lot of times it's just pure ego. A lot of times it won't be anything for survival. It's just because of the ego. And if we don't bypass the ego, then we're not going to be on the same side of this situation so that we can have a joint venture to finding the solution to our issues. So that is why emotional buying is extremely important. Understanding how to build confidence and how to increase pain is going to be absolutely necessary on your sales calls. Also, the appointment booking. If you understand the psychological conditions of your market, now we can start using stimuli in copy that's very specific to their pre-existing pains. And if you say it in a specific way that they really resonate with, if you start saying pain points that only they would know, right? That is the key. Now we get to logical justification. So you probably heard this saying, like people buy with emotions, they justify with logic, right? I just showed you how to bypass the emotional phase. So how are we able to get them to justify with logic without making us seem like a threat? Well, again, it goes back to predator and prey theory. So you'll actually see how these stack on top of each other extremely well. So if you create copy like everybody else, or if you do sales calls like everybody else, nothing else matters, right? So you must get that right first. If you approach a sales call like it's you versus them, or if you have copy that's alienating your prospect, then nothing else matters, right? If you don't build enough emotion, then nothing else matters, right? So all of these build on top of each other. You have to follow these step by step by step. And without all of these, then you're going to hit this fat brick wall and not be happy. So when it comes to logical justification, the foundation of it really is the emotional buy-in first. Because as soon as they feel like you're against them, then their cortisol is going to flood their brain, and then all the logical thinking goes out the window. They'll start thinking about all the excuses and the reasons not to do it instead of starting to think about, wait, this could be a good solution for me. So that's why it's so dang important to build these things before you even talk about logical justification. And when it comes to logical justification, the main thing that we want to do is you want to take them on their own journey to why they think this is a good decision, right? Because once we do that, this is going to flare up the prefrontal cortex as far as justification. And like I said, they're going to start looking for all the reasons to do it. And once you start framing it as this, so you say things like, instead of looking for all the reasons not to do it, the person who is getting to X goal, how do they approach this situation? And then once you set that environment, you set that context, then you start diving into, okay, they start giving you the ideas. Now that is very important. The law of free will, right? So if you tell a kid to go make his bed and clean his room, he's not going to want to do it. But if you give him the environment and the free will, then he's eventually going to see how trashy his room is. He's going to realize the natural consequences of the room like being really poopy. And if he has a girl come over, he's going to hate it. So he's going to do it on his own. That is so much more powerful than just telling him to do it because he doesn't understand why to do it. That is the same thing that we're doing on these sales calls. Seriously, I know it sounds crazy, like it sounds like a ridiculous example, but that's exactly what it is. So we're giving them the environment to make a decision on their own. We are not telling them why to make a decision. And that is why the best salespeople in the world ask majority just questions only and don't say very many statements at all, right? So as you go on this logical justification, you give them the environment on how to make their own decision. You ask them and you frame it as a way as the person who's getting X goal, what is the way they approach this situation? Well, oh, they're gonna look for how to make this work, blah, 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 blah. Awesome. What do you think that looks like for you? And then they're say, oh, I have this idea, this idea. Okay. And then the same thing applies to when you're going through like the problem discovery. So, okay, what's the issue? Oh, my issue is XYZ. What if you try to fix this? I've tried this. Okay, how did that work for you? Nothing really worked. Why don't you think it worked? Oh, well, maybe it could be this. Maybe it could be this. Okay, so what is your intuition telling you the solution is? Well, oh, I could probably do this, and this. And you'd be like, I completely agree. That is why we blah 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 blah. Right. So you want to put them in this environment where they find their solutions on their own. The way that applies to copy, it doesn't apply to copy much at all because you don't want to have too much logic when it comes to copy. The one thing that books appointments for outbound systems is curiosity. So usually cliffhangers is the best way. So that's why you never say, we'll run your ads or we are a marketing agency. You never say that in any outbound system. The main way to do it is you're just going to have the offer, right? When it comes to logical justification on outbound systems, your one goal is to uh, increase perceived likelihood of achievement and decrease risk as much as freaking possible. And the way that you do that is through proper offer development, which is an entire 5 hour long video on its own. That's why we have things like risk reversals, right? So if we don't get you X appointments in X amount of time, then we give you a full refund and $1,000 for your time, plus you keep access to XYZ. That's a killer offer, right? Worst case scenario, they get all this cool free stuff. Best case scenario, they reach their goals, right? So that's how logical justification applies to the outbound systems and appointment booking, and that's how it'll apply to sales as well. Last thing is going to be follow the leader. So we'll see this in biology as well. So we usually there's a leader of the pack, right? And everybody follows the leader. And when it comes to being on sales calls or doing appointment systems, then if you have like all of this alone, even if you didn't have a crazy authority, you can probably still knock it out the park, right? If you know how to engineer these. If you put authority on top of it, it is deal closed, like super easy, lay down close, I'll give you all my money, let's get to going, right? So the way that we engineer authority is obviously number one, you probably already know, is the social credit, right? So if we're able to put some sort of social credit, like we just did this for this person and here's a video testimonial interview, if we can engineer that before our meetings even, that is super freaking powerful. This is why I call them trust funnels. So the pre-call nurturing. If you have a correct funnel that's introducing yourself and your story first, so they bind with you emotionally, right? And they already see your face and they know what you're like. And then you start also, maybe you automate a YouTube testimony video to send them via WhatsApp. Now they start seeing how it worked for other people. And let's say you have a social media brand and you're speaking about these concepts on YouTube. Now they see you as an expert in the industry. And but more specifically on these sales calls, the way that you can strongly engineer authority is your tonality alone in body language. 100%. The first 10 seconds of your sales call is when you establish authority, majority of the time. I'll get into how there's other things we could do later in the call, but that first 10 seconds is so dang important. How confident you are when you say, this is the plan for today, this is what's going to happen, and then I'm going to do XYZ, you're going to think XYZ, and then we'll decide if we want to move forward. If you say that stuff extremely confidently without any wavering doubt, then you're good. Like you've established the tonality for the rest of the call. They're not going to be talking a whole bunch for your answers, and you're just good for the sales call. But the other way that you could engineer this is more around the pitch as well. Now this comes down to your competence. So this is another way to engineer authority. So we have social credit to engineer authority, tonality and body language to engineer authority, but also competence to engineer authority. And this just comes down to actually knowing what you're freaking talking about. So if we're doing the pitch, if we're able to point things out that they never even thought of, and we're still tying it back to how it relates to them, then they'll see you like a freaking genius. Like that is why on a lot of my calls, the pitch, they feel like they're getting a free value session that they should have paid for. And I love it because it leaves them off the call, whether we move forward or not, in a better position. It's amazing, right? Give them some clarity. But The point is if you start tying in things that they never even thought about, they never even considered, and you give them this aha moment, then you immediately position yourself as authority. And I see a lot of people that struggle with this. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm new to business," or "I just started my agency," or whatever it is, right? And they're like, "I'm getting on calls with people that are millionaires and they're super successful. They have this huge brand. How the hell do I maintain the frame and authority because their ego's even bigger than mine, right?" You know what you do better than they do. That is the reason they booked a call. They booked on your calendar. They are looking for your expertise. The environment alone has already established authority for you. That's why when they get on the call, they feel like they are lacking authority and have a need to claim it back. That is why people try to claim the frame away from the sales rep. Because by even just booking the call, they've already admitted to a fault. They've already threatened their own ego. They had to damage their own ego to even book with you. If you just realize that they're on a call for a reason, they are showing up to the doctor for help, claim that authority, play off of it. That is the whole reason that you started this business. Don't let anybody who take that frame for you. You spend every single second of the day building what you built right now. That is why they're trying to talk to you. They spend every second of their day working on what they're doing. You spend every second of your day working on what you're doing to help them. That's where they look up to. That's how you engineer authority. It's pretty simple, right? Everything that I just said, the way that you can engineer authority on outbound systems as well is also the trust funnel. But also, if you have a really good setters system to actually call them before and pre-qualify them, so it's called a triage system. That is also a way to establish authority. So you can engineer authority by simply like your environment that you're in, right? Have a nice camera, things like that. Also, the perception of a big company. So if we have people that aren't you that are reaching out to these people, they already see you as a level higher too. So that is the 5 steps to bypassing the amygdala so you can be able to close more deals. These, again, are in a logical order. You must stack these on top of each other. Once you do this, you're going to bypass the amygdala. People are going to feel like there's zero sales friction. They're going to be so thankful they got on call with you. Everything just feels smooth. If you understand this stuff, client acquisition just feels smooth. That's it. You're no longer fighting the people you're trying to work with to try to hard sell them to buy your stuff. You're working with them. It is a joint journey to their solution to their problems. Once you figure this out, be able to make a lot more money. If I gave you some value, totally subscribe. If I didn't give you some value, definitely don't subscribe because I definitely wasted your time if I didn't. Hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you.